let's get started. My name is Dominic Wellington. I'm Director of Product Marketing at SnapLogic, and I'm joined by my colleague Jordan Milhausen, who's a Solutions Engineer at SnapLogic. Thanks for supporting me here, Jordan.
Yep, yeah, thanks, Dom. Yeah, welcome everybody. Excited to show you what we got today.
Great. Next slide, please. So just a couple of logistical details. I see people are already following the first instruction to share their name and where they're joining us from, so thanks for that. There is also a poll question you can see with the red dot. If you have a moment to answer that, that'd be really helpful. As we go through, please do drop your questions in the Q&A tab. Our colleague Jeffrey is also on the line. He'll be answering questions. If it's a simple question, he'll answer it live. If it's something more complex, then Jordan and I will take it at the end of the session. There is also a docs tab with attachments and more information that you can download. And you will receive the webinar recording, so don't worry about trying to take notes or screenshots or whatever as we go. But with that, let's get started. So there's a question right now about how to use AI tools, how to use AI agents, and how these fit in with human users in the work situation. And there isn't actually a conflict there. What we've seen is that they go together better than any of them can work on their own. AI in general is good at discrete tasks, but what they lack is the domain context that those tasks fit into, and that's what we human users can give them. So humans augmented by AI assistants, what's sometimes called centaurs or hybrid or cyborg, there are all sorts of names, are much more effective than either the AI working alone or unassisted humans. So today we're going to be talking about some strategies for putting that into practice. But the main topic right now, the hot topic on everybody's mind, is agents, agentic AI. And there's one big question, which is what exactly is the definition of an agent as opposed to just, the Gen AI workflows that we've got used to over the last couple of years. So one definition that I find helpful comes from Gartner. It says AI agents are autonomous or semi-autonomous software entities that use these AI techniques to perceive, make decisions, take actions, and achieve goals in their digital or physical environments. So they're not just following a script that we give them, but they're actually going out there and trying to achieve some sort of goal that they've been given by making decisions in real time. Now, integrating that sort of view is hard. It's different from the sort of traditional automation that we're used to. It's also different from the Gen AI that we've got used to. And that's the reason why, depending on who you ask, far too many AI projects never make it out of the stage of being a promising pilot, a cool proof of concept. They don't actually get to the point of going into production and delivering for real users concrete business results. So the stat we have here is from Deloitte for 85%. Depending on who you ask, as I say, anything from 50 to 90+% of AI projects hit that barrier. And, you may say that's normal for the stage of maturity of the technology. Lots of people are in an exploratory phase, but it's been a couple of years now. We should be starting to see more concrete results. So what is it that's slowing down the adoption and the production deployment? Well, let me quote Gartner again. Sorry, if you come back one. Yeah, one big one is the data availability and AI readiness of the data, just getting hold of the data and getting hold of it in a format that is suitable for use. And then the other one is the data governance and the security, the rules and regulations and compliance, and just the plain IT security aspects of exposing the data to AI. And we found the same thing when we ran our own survey. If you go to the next slide, please. Thank you. We found that lots of people are already using AI in their role, and 50% of them are even using AI agents. So they're way out ahead of corporate IT sometimes. Employees are interacting with AI most days of the week, and they report saving over 3 hours on work-related tasks on average across a large number of respondents. But that's all self-propelled, it's self-driven. Despite the strong adoption, despite the value that they're seeing individually, far too many people, 94%, are reporting barriers to effective AI usage in their organization. And again, it comes back to data privacy and security. Can I get permission to get access to the data? Can I even get access technically to the data that I need to make my AI tool work? It's easy to make a proof of concept, cool demo work offline, but getting access to the real world production data, that's a whole other question. Okay, so that's the problem. How can we solve that? So we believe that at SnapLogic, we have the components of an agentic integration fabric that can help address all of these different aspects. So we use AI internally, embedded AI, you might call it, to deliver on various different tasks. We have our Copilot experience. It's called SnapGPT, an absolute triumph of marketing because in 7 characters, it tells you exactly what that does. You can tell it, make me a pipeline to connect my Salesforce data and read it out and format and put it into a database. The SnapLogic Intelligent Modernizer, a really cool tool to help you migrate your integrations from obsolete platforms into SnapLogic so you can do all of these cool AI things, such as connected AI, connecting to LLMs, connecting to vector databases to do retrieval augmented experiences, various AI utilities to do this and that, brand new support for MCP, another really hot topic. And with Agent Creator, you can build agents right inside of SnapLogic with some specific features that we developed over time to support you and help you do that in the most efficient way. So how that works is the SnapLogic platform, the existing SnapLogic platform, was already well set up to support this use case because we had over 1,000 connectors ready to go. It's really rare for us not to be able to connect to something. We probably have connectors ready to go, or we have a generic connector that we can leverage to read your data, whether it's from a commercial off-the-shelf tool or some sort of homegrown system. As long as it has an API, it has a database we can query, it has something we can talk to, we can probably figure that out. But then on top of that, we built all of these AI-specific capabilities to be able to read in unstructured data, which had always been an issue, to be able to digitize that, cleanse it, format it, as well as the structured data that we were more used to from the past. And to be able to combine that, a lot of use cases boil down to, I have some data in some spreadsheets and some files, and I have some data in a database, and I need to combine or compare those different sources of data. You can build your vector store, so we can feed it and we can retrieve data from it, and we can help you apply policies in the interaction with the LLMs, with support for all of the leading LLMs and vector databases to do that. And the reason we have credibility to stand here and say this to you is that we didn't wake up when ChatGPT hit the market and suddenly decide, wow, we need some AI. We started with our AI features back in 2017, back when we were still calling it machine learning, in fact. So Iris has been a feature of the tool for a long time to help you build pipelines by working out what the next logical action would be based on what you've already put on the canvas. We have AutoLink to help you figure out, data on the left, data on the right. Can we map the field names, the formats? Again, automatically take care of a lot of the grunt work there. And so we had an in-house AI team and capability so that when ChatGPT hit, we're very quick off the gate with SnapGPT, the Copilot, and then the Gen AI app builder to help you build your own AI workflows, which then became the Agent Creator as the industry started to understand the potential of agents. And by deploying these capabilities together with customers, we learned what was working, what was not working, and we're able to iterate together with those early adopter customers to launch Agent Creator 3.0. And now we have the support for MCP and agent-to-agent protocols to support agents that are built in platforms other than SnapLogic and give them that same access to data, to the core business systems that you use to run your enterprise today. So an example of that capability is the prompt composer. So prompting the LLMs is basically the key skill that you need right now. And far too many tools, even today, late 2025, just give you an empty text box and say, go wild, type whatever prompt you want. And we also started with that, but we realized it wasn't cutting it for our more sophisticated customers. They needed something more. So this is what the prompt composer looks like now. We'll be seeing it more in the demo, but the point is you get a preview of what the data is going to look like, the state of the data as it is now. You can develop your prompt, but you also have AI assistance to help you build that. So that gives you much, much faster time to value because you're not constantly compiling and running and checking the results and, oh no, I have to go back and edit something. You can do all of that in real time. But once you have those agents, as we said, one of the key characteristics of agents is an agentic flow is not linear. It will make decisions. It will reason, as we say. Given the goal as it has, it will call on different tools and sub-agents to deliver on that goal. And so it's important to understand what that flow looks like. And so the agent visualizer helps us do just that. So we can understand what the flow will look like through that whole system of multiple agents. And when it comes to MCP, well, SnapLogic can work in a couple of different ways. There are two notions, the MCP client and the MCP server. So there's something like 16,000 public MCP servers out there. And if you're working in the SnapLogic pipeline, you can just drop that into your pipeline like any other tool and access all of those tools, resources, prompts that are exposed by those public MCP servers. And that becomes part of your workflow with no additional configuration required on your side. But where it becomes interesting is that SnapLogic pipelines can also act as MCP servers in their own right. So you could be working in your own AI tool, your Claude Desktop, Perplexity, ChatGPT itself, and these all have MCP client capabilities built into them. But now you can register a tool which is exposed by a SnapLogic pipeline, and that gives immediate access to all of those 1,000 snaps, all of the core business systems that you're using today, Workday, Oracle, Salesforce, SAP, whatever it is that is relevant for your particular use case and situation. So you might ask, so when would I use agents since they have these different capabilities? They can call each other. It's a little bit unpredictable how they work. So the rule of thumb that we have is deterministic auditability where it matters, probabilistic speed where it counts. The benefit of agents is they can give you that speed, but it's not deterministic, it's probabilistic. And it's not always easy to audit it. So if it really matters, then maybe it shouldn't be an agent, and maybe it shouldn't be a chatbot. Not everything is a good use case for a chatbot. Because some things just take too long. People would get bored and wander away. But you can also use AI in a sort of back-end role for a traditional automation system. Wait for some data to come in from something really long duration, mainframe, what have you, summarize it with an LLM and punt that back to the user. The key thing is to map out the business case, identify what are the key performance indicators, how will you know what good is, what will the users care about, and use those in feedback loops. So a big one is, do agents flag tasks often for human review? If a little bit of that human in the loop is good for control, too much, if they're flagging everything, maybe you need to go back to the drawing board. Maybe the agent is not a good result. What's the time to completion? If the agent's taking as long or longer than a human, again, the automation isn't really helping us there. Maybe we need to go back to that, because one of the results is you can get really poor customer satisfaction from that and lower the quality of the result, or maybe your use case has an objective measure that is applicable there. But the way to learn is by trying. And we at SnapLogic, we learned by automating our own processes. So our finance team had a major issue that the end of month, closing the books, end of quarter, reconciling the revenue was just annoying. It required them to deal with files that the salespeople were sending them, PDFs, Excel spreadsheets, and whatnot, and pull them from Box, try to make sense of them, read them into Salesforce, compare the data that was already in Salesforce. It was just taking far too long to do. And we realized that we were actually losing revenue in that process. There was money getting lost in the cracks, which is never a good idea. So we were able to very quickly build something using SnapLogic technology, drinking our own champagne, that accelerated that month-end close process by over 90%, reduce the time spent reviewing contracts by over 30%, and a couple of $1 million revenue recovered, which is not nothing. So pretty good considering this was literally 2 people as a half-time afternoon project. But my colleague Jordan will now walk you through a more complete use case so you can get an idea of what this actually looks like in practice. Over to you, Jordan.
Awesome. Thanks, Dominic. Very well said. So before we dive into this, before we dive into the live demonstration, I want to go through just the high-level schematics of what we're going to be looking at. So I took the functional and the already in production use case that we have at SnapLogic with this revenue operations agent, and I made it an abridged version just to kind of show the high-level concepts and to show how we're going to work with both augmented workflows, but then also how those are going to be incorporated into an overall agent. And we're going to be able to see kind of how those two things, while they are different, they typically coexist together, but they don't have to. So first, what's going to happen is, regardless of where we're ingesting the document, whether it's a box drive, Google Drive, whether it's a PDF, fax, image, it doesn't matter. Once you get that information and that data into SnapLogic, it's going to hit our RevOps agent, where it's going to have access to 4 different tools. And we're going to take a look at each of these tools and how this agent is going to be thinking once we dive into the demonstration. But at a high level, we're going to be looking at the auto IDP tool, which is the first tool that's going to happen after that PDF is uploaded. This is where I want you to focus on, which is the augmented intelligence piece. This is going to take our unstructured data and it's going to turn it into workable JSON data so that we can continue the process where we're going to notify a human. So this could be email, Slack. For the purposes of this demo, it's going to be an email. And then from there, our agent is going to find the Salesforce opportunity based off of the data that it extracted from that PDF parsing. And then we're going to update Salesforce from there. And then ultimately, as I mentioned, updating Salesforce. So as you can see, this captures sort of that agentic aspect with the augmented intelligence built into this workflow. And so from there, let's get into live demonstration. All right, so I'm going to go to the front end interface that I developed for this demonstration. Again, typically you would automate this from just by uploading a PDF file into a box or Google Drive, or maybe it's pulling it from an email. Again, it doesn't matter. SnapLogic can connect to it and we can pull that information in. So what I'm going to do is just upload this document. I'm going to show you what it looks like in a sec. I'm just going to get this process going because it has to carry out some tasks in the background. So we're uploading this document now. Give it a sec to get into our SnapLogic workflow, and then I'm going to hit reconcile. So the document that I just uploaded, this is just a mock document, obviously, McFly Enterprises, if there's any Back to the Future fans here. So this is a purchase order, and this is an unstructured document. So this is a PDF. Again, this could be a picture of something. This could be a fax. It doesn't matter. For this demo, we're just looking at this PDF document. And then within Salesforce, this is our mock opportunity we have. We have these 2 fields down here, payment status and payment details, that are going to be updated. And then as well, we're going to get an email that is going to come to me as that notify email step, so that that human in the loop aspect. So if we go over, so it's still processing. So again, what's happening is this is going into SnapLogic. It's hitting our IDP pipeline. It's taking that PDF and it's turning that unstructured data and parsing it out into JSON. From there, it's going to be taking that JSON. It's going to be routing that data back up into the agent to then analyze, and the agent is going to think through, okay, here's the information I got. All right, then I need to call the Salesforce tool to read which opportunity ID that actually is, and then it's going to grab that information, and then it's going to determine, okay, here's that ID. Let me go update the Salesforce with this information. And so 2 things that just happened. One, the email that I just got, nicely formatted HTML. You'll see once we dive into the prompt composer within the actual platform that I didn't prompt it, or I didn't have this template. I just prompted the agent to create an HTML. And then I also put in a mock credit check analysis, just so you can see that with this process, you can call any sort of external APIs, such as like a Duns and Bradstreet or any sort of external credit check as well. And then if we go over to Salesforce and do a refresh, Go to details, we can see the payment status and payment details are updated. Again, now that full agentic process is complete with that augmented workflow, sort of as that intermediary step to parse that data and then notify him. Again, that could be an email, Slack, Teams, it doesn't matter. So let's jump over to the platform. So this is our agent. So it's a very simple workflow. I have a record replay, a prompt, tool definitions, and the actual agent snap. So the record replay is just allowing me to kind of show this workflow as it's happening. First snap we're going to take a look at, which is this prompt snap. So this is what Dominic was alluding to before. This is that prompt composer. And this allows us to very easily iterate, or first create our prompts and then also iterate over them. So I'm sure if you've done prompt engineering, everybody knows that typically you have a prompt, you have an output is bad. You go to ChatGPT, you say this prompt is bad, or this output's bad, update my prompt, and then come back. With this tool, you can do all of that directly in the platform, and you don't have to leave the screen. So you can see the input schema coming in from the left. You can see the input data from that schema, the prompt in the middle. So as you can see, I'm not going to go through this too in depth, but I've prompted my agent in a very specific way. You could be as vague or specific as you want. And the whole idea with sort of creating these agents is to kind of play around with how you'd like to prompt. There's obviously best practices, but you're not going to create a good prompt unless you actually test it out within your workflow. And so I have the IDP tool, the Salesforce read tool, update tool, and notify by tool. But we'll take a look at those within the agent visualizer in a sec here. And then on the right-hand side, we have a rendered template. So this is just if there's any dynamic fields, they automatically get rendered. So you can see that this is the prompt that is going to hit our agent. And then from there, we have our second snap, which is the tool definitions, which is what picks up the definitions of the tools, and it tells the agent, here's what you have access to, and here's how to use it, right? So step one, we need our prompt, build that prompt. Step two, grab the tools, combine those, and then let's call our agent. And so this is our agent snap that calls these tools. You can see the LLM we're using is Sonnet. If you don't know your LLMs, you don't need to know them offhand. We can introspect just by entering your account information. We work with, we're agnostic when it comes to LLMs. For this specific case, I'm using Bedrock, but we use Gemini, we use GPT. If you have a custom LLM, you can incorporate that as well. And so from there, the next awesome tool that we've created here at SnapLogic is that agent visualizer. So this is that governance piece, and you can see the workflow from end to end. So this is a great way to help visualize how you're working with agents and what they're doing. Otherwise, you're like, how is this functioning? Are there any failures anywhere? Did it do exactly what I needed to do? So on and so forth. So we can click through this. This is an interactive tool. So you can click on revenue ops. You can see the prompt that we gave our agent. And then you can see how it's calling that first tool, and you can see the reasoning and the action throughout. So with this first step, the IDP tool, it goes, okay, I'll execute the document processing and Salesforce integration workflow as specified. And then it sends the specific parameters based off of the tool definitions, gives us a result. So it took that unstructured data. I prompted within that workflow is actually another agent that is actually extracting this using multimodal capabilities within the platform. And so what that does is it pulls out that JSON information, just as we see here with the summary. Then it goes to our next tool, right? So after the document processing is complete, it then creates that HTML. The agent itself creates an HTML, sends in that email that we saw. And then from there, it needs to use the Salesforce tool. And this is where it gets very interesting. And this is where that non-deterministic agentic aspect really comes into play here, right? And that's because I didn't give it or teach it how to create Salesforce queries. It's called SOQL. It's a Salesforce object query language. I just defined the tool and the parameters needed, and the agent was able to create the query for me. And then it got the results for the op ID. And then for the last step, this is the actually cool part. I mean, this whole thing has been cool so far, but this is where it gets very interesting, where the parameters that were specified, great. It's the ID, the payment details, and the payment status. And then we get a result, but we see that we actually get an error. And this is by design. So there's a max length character limit of 255 within the Salesforce field specifically. So it wasn't able to actually update Salesforce. It got an error, but how we had this agent set up, it actually gets fed back the errors so that it can reason over those errors. And you can see those two steps here. First step with the Salesforce update tool, we receive an error. The second, it thinks over that error and it tries again. So you can see it goes payment details exceeded 255 character limit, retrying with a condensed version. It shortens that length. And then you can see in our final agent output exactly sort of what we saw in that front end. We can see that this is the final updates from our agent. So it's successfully updated, completed the document processing, and then you can see that it updated the Salesforce from there. And so with that, there's a way that you can sort of take this to the next level too with SnapLogic with our APIM. So we have a fully managed APIM solution where you can actually take all of these tools that we've created and you can wrap them in policies. And so this really speaks to the fact that with SnapLogic, you build these tools once and you can reuse them. You can wrap them in policies for other agents. You can then also use those same tools, as Dominic alluded to as well, which is for MCP. So the same tools you create for your agents, you can create for your MCP servers as well, so that other AI assistants like maybe a Claude or a ChatGPT can hook up to your MCP server and access your internal data without further configuration from there. And so with that, I'm going to jump back over to the presentation. That is the demonstration. And so just kind of as like a high level recap, we just showed that with SnapLogic, you can create these reusable tools that are at its core. You're able to orchestrate the agents very seamlessly within SnapLogic. You can see how you can work with augmented workflows within your agents, and then also be able to speed up development with tools like Prompt Visualizer, Agent Visualizer, and see the process end to end. So I'm going to jump back over to the presentation. And Dominic, back to you.
Thanks, Jordan. That's great as ever. I might want to hit G23 to get back to where we were.
Oh, almost there.
Or do it that way. So we saw an excellent example of how we at SnapLogic are using these capabilities. If you go to the next slide, we have customers in all sorts of different domains who are already deploying these agents. We have customers who have already renewed with us. They've been doing it for over a year. That's what lets us have these real world experiences in sales, in finance, in marketing, in people and HR, in technology tasks that we can leverage and that we can provide to you as templates, as building blocks, or just guide you if you have similar stories. So these are just a few of our customers who are already deploying AI agents. There are more on our website and detailed white papers and all of these as well, if you're curious about what exactly they're up to. But just to wrap up with a couple of other things. So what we've seen now is, now that you've seen an agentic AI workflow, maybe that it makes a bit more sense what I was saying earlier about the difference between just using an AI step, an LLM step as part of a normal workflow and what a truly agentic workflow is. So an AI augmented workflow will have a predictable order of operations. It will do the things in order, and that's known and unchanging. And the agentic version is non-deterministic, so it's much more flexible in responding to unpredictable situations, as we saw with the character limit, that these sorts of things can crop up. If you haven't specifically thought of that error condition in your traditional workflow, it will just stop and throw an error, and hopefully something will catch that. The agent, as we saw, is able to deal with that and move on. If you just have a discrete AI task, maybe you just wanted the PDF parsing, but once you've got the data out of the PDF, you're good to go with it in a more traditional automation mode. That's fine. The LLMs are just there. They're just tasks. But an agentic flow can be useful if you have multiple different LLMs that you want to combine, different AI models that are suited for different subtasks. Here you want to parse a PDF, there you want to read from an image, all of these different types of things. And the final one is, again, it's about flexibility. The static requirements, if your requirement doesn't change, the workflow doesn't change, the process you're automating doesn't change, then again, you can automate it in a fairly static and unchanging manner. If you expect things to change over time, to evolve, then agents might give you that flexibility that you don't have to be changing and editing and getting your hands dirty every single time some salesperson somewhere else in the world comes up with a new type of order form that you need to be processing. So it's just some ideas to guide you in your own development. But what that looks like in the real world, well, don't have to trust us. We asked Forrester to speak to 4 different SnapLogic customers and sort of anonymize and combine the responses they got. So they call this a total economic impact study, TEI study. You may have seen this from other vendors. But we thought the results were pretty satisfying, honestly. We feel we did a good job with this one. So 181% return on the investment that these customers made with us. So they are happy with that. The net present value score is up over $2 million. But the really significant one, at least to my mind, is a third one, the payback period, less than 6 months. This is not something that you have to get into with the expectation of some sort of open-ended development project that you never know when you'll get some results back. They were getting their break even inside of a couple of quarters because we help them pick out things that will have a rapid impact on their business, that will give real value to users, and get rolling with those quickly through those templates, through those assistants, through these capabilities. So in closing, by all means, talk to us. At this point, we assume that people have tried AI somewhere in their business. But if you're running into those stumbling blocks that we talked about at the beginning about secure live access to the core enterprise data, and that's causing your projects to stall out, talk to us. We can help. SnapLogic was born as a data integration company. So for us, this particular AI application is an absolutely natural evolution of what we've been doing for some time now and pretty successfully. If you've got governance issues, people are spinning up their own AI projects all over the place, all of your vendors are bringing their AI tools, and you're worried about losing control, again, we can help. With MCP, we can connect all of those things together so you're getting the value of the development that your existing vendors are doing, but without the risk of loss of control and spaghetti integration going everywhere. Again, because this is a problem that we saw in the previous generations of integration, and so we have a lot of best practices and technical capabilities that we can share with you. If you've got legacy integration systems that don't offer you these capabilities, I mentioned briefly the SLIM, our AI migration tool that will ingest your existing integrations and help you get them onto a more modern platform. That is something that you may want to talk to us about. We would love to help you get off of integration systems that are holding you back from getting these AI capabilities out there. And in general, if you need someone who's done this before, who has some really large scale, really fast moving experience, or experience in environments at a large scale and fast moving, and can help you not have to reinvent the wheel and relearn the hard lessons all over again. But with that, thank you for your attention. We've seen a bunch of questions coming in, but our colleague Jeffrey has been doing a great job, as far as I can see in the QA tab, of answering most of those. But if anyone has some questions that we can answer live, we'd be happy to take them, either about, the general state of AI and what's going on, or about the specifics of what Jordan built and showed us earlier. And by the way, I've seen a few people ask about the slides. Maybe you missed it at the beginning. You will absolutely receive a recording. There are also a bunch of materials in the Docs tab that you can download that give a bit more context on what I was talking about.
Yep, and something to note too, we run agent creator boot camps, or AI SnapLogic boot camps here, totally free. So if you're interested in signing up for one of those sessions, we just completed our November session. We should have one either late December, probably in the new year. But if you're interested, reach out to your CSNs.
So one question's come in, is the example pipeline that we saw shared on the website, so not as such, that's kind of specific to our environment, but there is a template, a recipe. So Jordan mentioned a couple of times the acronym IDP. And we didn't expand on that actually. So IDP stands for Intelligent Document Processing. That is a generic description that Gartner came up with, I believe, originally. And so there's an IDP template that you can absolutely download and customize to your own environment.
Yep, exactly. Looks like there's some questions coming in. Any use cases in healthcare? Quite a few, actually. There's one that actually just came to mind. I forget what the organization was called, but they're using us for, I believe it's some sort of disease. It might be sickle cell data. And we're the integration piece between how the data gets from point A to point B. Again, I don't remember exactly how, but our real-time capabilities allow them to send that data, which can mean life or death if that isn't the data isn't sent properly back and forth. Another one I think I can mention is AstraZeneca. They use us for live recordings for their salespeople in doctors' offices to transcribe live for them questions and get answers back that they typically couldn't answer because either they're too technical and things like that. So just a few healthcare use cases there. Is the prompt engineering task that you showed is just one task, that retry and correct error? So the prompt engineering task. So if I could just sort of expand on this question, you have your prompt that is the instructions fed to the LLM along with the tools that it has access to, and then the agent carries out those tasks as you define them in the prompt. And then in the prompt, you can specify how to handle errors. So if a tool fails, read the error and retry. And that's what's happening.
And Jeffrey just posted in the chat about the agent showcase on our website. So that's really good to give you some real world examples of agents. And a couple of questions about markets that we work in. So we have worked with smaller companies. We have worked with the agriculture industry. So a customer that I've worked on specifically is Syngenta, a big ag tech group in Europe. There are others, not entirely remembering exactly who we're cleared to talk about, but yes, that is a world that we've worked in. Typically, if you have multiple systems that you need to connect to each other, that need to be speaking to each other, whether with AI or just in a traditional ETL, I need to load data from here over there and format it in an appropriate way, or API management, these are all tasks that SnapLogic is built for, and would encourage you to take a look at some of the customer stories on the website and see if any of them ring a bell. Finance also, yes. Fidelity is probably the big daddy example in that space. But we do have a number of other finance companies. We just had our event in Europe earlier this month, and we had Cambridge and Counties Bank, STB. We had a few finance people on the stage with us as well.
Got a question about the boot camp. So the boot camp it's a 5-day, pretty intensive boot camp. It's 2 days of Zoom training. So we go through the platform from 0 to 100, and then we complete a project. So you guys can get some hands-on experience. It's very thorough.
And the SnapLogic trial version, there is a SnapLogic trial version, a 30-day trial that you can get hold of, and that does include the agent creation capability as well, yes. How do we sign up for Bootcamp? Jeffrey, have you already dropped the URL in the chat? That will be good for the...
Yeah, if not, I'm not sure if we've announced the next session yet, but you can speak with your CSM if you're a SnapLogic customer. Otherwise, we have them posted on our website for upcoming events.
And that is a hands-on experience. You get your hands dirty with it. It's a really good program. All right. It looks like the pace of questions coming in is starting to slack off. So it looks like we're at roughly at time as well. So by all means, do reach out to us if you have any more questions. A lot of resources on the website, including interactive ones, including customer case studies, and that trial version as well. And we'd be happy to help you walk you through some of those and show you any more details, get you something that's more specific to your environment.
Yep. And feel free to reach out to us on LinkedIn. If you have any questions, feel free to message me directly.
Thank you all for taking part and for being such an interactive audience. This has been great. If you're watching the recording, you still have access to all of the docs and resources that we shared, and the offer stands to reach out anytime. Thank you all. Have a great day.
Thanks, everybody. See ya.